Hopefully everybody's doing well. This, Galeros, how's it going? So basically, this is a live stream. I wanted to set up a couple of them on different weekends just to try to give everyone who wanted to attend one of these or to chat with me an opportunity to do so. So I set one up for last weekend. If you didn't catch that one, the playback is there. If you are able to catch this one, that's great. And if you're not able to catch this one, I'm doing another one next weekend. So I'll post when what time that is. I believe it's set right now for next Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. So we will give that a shot. And as far as this one, I'll get to questions in the room in a minute. But I just wanted to touch briefly on the last week that we had, losing Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne, Hulk Hogan. Those were three huge names from my childhood. I'm assuming that those probably impacted a lot of you also. Chuck Mangione, yeah, he's another one. Probably kind of was almost forgotten about in terms of everyone else who passed, but Ozzy, that was just a huge one. Not entirely unexpected, but you know, if anybody saw the Back to the Beginning concert, he didn't look like he was in bad shape, but he also didn't look like he was going to pass within a couple of weeks. You don't expect that to happen that quickly. Obviously, you never know. I've had people already contacting me asking if I was going to do a video or a story. Ozzy passed away in the UK. I have no immediate plans to go over there. I'm sure somebody will do them, but it's way too soon after the fact to do those videos, in my opinion. I actually do not live that far away from Hulk Hogan, but I'm not going to do that video out of respect for the family for some time. But yeah, I've gotten several people reaching out about those, asking about them already, so I just wanted to touch on that quickly. And yeah, it's been a rough week though. If you were a kid that grew up in the in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, those were three that really hit home. Malcolm Jamal Warner. I did watch The Cosby Show when I was a kid, but I actually got into another show called The Resident that he was really, really good in. He played a heart surgeon, just a really good actor. And by all accounts, everybody that I knew that had interactions with him said he was just the nicest guy. So it's pretty sad to see. Warren, how you doing? Double A Photography, Steven, how you guys doing? Yeah, definitely a rough week. I put up a decent amount of videos this week. I got back to Plains, Georgia, as soon as I heard that they opened up the Jimmy Carter gravesite. That was one that a lot of people had asked me to go back and do when they opened it up. The home is not opened up yet. I talked to a couple of park rangers there. They said that the home will not be open until probably 2 to 3 years from now, because they have to, first off, they have to go through the house. They have to inventory all of their personal possessions and probably figure out what's going to go to the museum, what's going to go to the presidential library, what's going to be distributed between family, between his kids, grandkids. And then the other thing is that their home is kind of old, and they want to make sure that it's basically reinforced to provide for the amount of visitors that are going to be going through the home. So they have to do some restoration and renovating and all that kind of stuff. So 2 to 3 years is the timeline they gave me as to when the home will be open to the public. So when it does, I will let you know, and we will make a return trip back when it does. But yeah, really hoping to get back and check out some more presidential spots. I have a lot more LA videos to show you guys, more Hollywood stuff, some true crime stuff. I've recorded quite a few videos. I shot another one yesterday that was kind of unexpected. I happened to be driving through a town, and there was a place that I kind of happened upon accidentally. I didn't realize where I was, but I filmed that one. That video will be out on Friday. And yeah, it's keeping busy with all that. But, you know, I want to make sure that I try to do these lives every once in a while, just so that I can connect with you guys, find out what you like about the channel, what you don't like. And yeah, so yeah, so how you guys doing? Charlie Rich, yeah, It's make sure that I'm seeing all these. Let's see, the Margot Hemingway house. I have not been to that one yet. Yeah, it's always fun to see what other people do. I maybe once a week I'll go through and I'll binge some different stuff from people I subscribe to. I don't get a chance to see them every day, and I miss a lot of videos that people do, so I don't always catch when somebody does certain things. And it's always fun when you can be the first to do something, but obviously with the amount of people that there are and the number of locations that are out there, most of the ones that you go to, somebody has done it at some point. But let's see, is it true you met Hulk Hogan? Yes, I did. It was about probably 6 or 7 years ago. He was doing an event that I was working in Chicago, and he was a really really nice guy. He I can't speak for um, much behind, like in terms of what his family life was like or anything like that. All I can speak on is what I saw, and he was a very nice guy, very approachable. He took his time. The people that would go and talk to him, when he was kind of off the clock, I guess you could say, he always made time to talk to people, especially kids, and he knew what that meant to people. He knew what his celebrity, what that was worth. So I always thought that he was a really nice guy. He might have made some mistakes later in his career, but there's kind of a difference between mixing the legend and who he was with the person that he was. Like I said, I only saw good things of him. So I mean, to me, he was nothing but nice. He was respectful to people at the event and everything else. So just a really, really nice guy. Um, yeah, it actually was. It did happen. Was I a huge wrestling fan? I did watch growing up. I don't currently watch because I probably couldn't name you 10 people that are professional wrestlers now. But back in the day, yeah, Hogan and Undertaker, all of them back in their heyday, I was a pretty avid watcher. I would get tickets when they came around. I always got a kick out of meeting those guys just because they were so massive. And, sometimes if you'd meet them, they'd put you in headlocks and stuff like that, and they would make really funny pictures. But, sadly, a lot of those guys are gone now. We lost Eddie Guerrero, and, you can't really mention too much about Chris Benoit now. But at some point, I will do a video on his home. But yeah, it was fun back in the day. Now I don't know enough about the business today. I probably haven't actively watched in probably close to 10 years, but it always was fun when I was a kid. The picture of me and Ozzy. What was it like meeting the legend? Okay, so Ozzy obviously was known as the Prince of Darkness. He was, he did a lot of drugs, drinking, and things like that in his time, but he was probably, I know a lot of people say this, but he was the most gentle guy. And the weird thing was is that he was such a legend, but I don't think he ever realized just how famous he was. Like he knew he was a big name, but I don't think he really comprehended how much he meant to people, because when he was not performing, he he would get depressed. When he'd sit at home, he couldn't interact with his fans. When he wasn't on stage, he would get depressed and he would kind of forget that he had fans out there. He had a very enriching family life. He had a supportive family and a lot of people around him that cared about him. But the whole thing is that he was a born performer. He loved his fans, and he was. You kind of have an expectation when you meet famous people that they're going to be a certain way, and he was very respectful, very kind, very soft spoken. But if you said something that interested him, his demeanor would perk up, and it didn't even have to be all about music. But if you happened to like a TV show or something that he liked, or he brought up something else random, or like a haunted place that you knew he'd been, or something like that, he would, he would just get really into that conversation. He was a really, really interesting guy. And, I had other friends that knew him much better than the interaction that I got. My interaction with him was probably a minute long, and I thought that was cool enough. But it was just enough to kind of mention a couple things and kind of engage him for a minute, and then on my way I went. But he was really, I mean, he was one of those guys that you walk away from thinking he's such a nicer guy than what you ever envisioned. He left everybody that walked away from him with a really good feeling, a positive vibe. And I can say that not every celebrity does that. Some of them you walk away and you think, wow, I wish I had never met this person and I'm never watching their movies again. Or you'll be watching a movie with somebody that you know, and you'll know something about that person. You'll just think, I really don't want to watch this crap. Let's see. Scott did a video on the Last House of Benoit. Yeah, I've seen a few people do it. I still want to do it, even though other people have done it, just because I think it'd be cool just to see it. I've never seen the house in person. But let's see. 2 songs. One was Sabbath. The other one is a duet with... Oh, yeah, the Lita Ford one. She was pretty good friends with Ozzy for a while, too. She did a tribute to him, I think the day after he passed. She did a live performance of that song and dedicated it to Ozzy. But Ozzy was one of those legends that there was nobody that didn't like him. Everybody in the business loved him. Everybody that encountered him loved him. And what a lot of people don't know is that Ozzy had other kids. Jack and Kelly were not his only kids. They were just the only ones that wanted to be involved in the Osbournes and the show and all that kind of stuff. But he has another daughter named Amy that I met way back in the day, and kind of got to be a little bit friends with for a little while. And we lost touch over the years, obviously long ago. But she was really cool, but she was not the kind of person that would tell you, "Oh, I'm Ozzy's daughter." Like stuff like that just never came up. So a lot of times things like that happen. But a lot of people think that he just had 2 kids. He has at least 4 that I know of. There may be others that I'm not thinking of at the moment. Aztec, how you doing? Hopefully you guys are having a good Sunday too. If you notice the background here, this is not my usual spot. For at least a little while, I have some podcasts to do. I have some interviews to do. I'm actually doing an interview on someone else's podcast after this, thus the quiet location here. And I'm actually there's an interview that I did last week that's going live on a show called the OG Mike Show. So if you want to see that, it's starting at 9 o'clock Eastern Time tonight on his channel. He may be in the chat now. If he does, I'm sure he'll say something. But that was a fun interview. It's about an hour long, just telling stories of different things in Hollywood. It's the 3rd time I've been on his show. But he's a really cool guy, and if you haven't checked out his channel yet, or if you don't know about it, he does a lot of stuff on the mafia and famous grave sites, things like that. But he just has a neat channel, and he does a lot of interviews with cool people. So let's see, hot in Ontario. It seems hot everywhere. It's like 105 here right now. Hi Sandra, how you doing? Hopefully everybody's doing well on this Sunday. But if anyone's curious to see what this looks like, this is a podcasting studio that I'm basically renting this podcasting studio by the hour. It's not mine. I wish it was, but if you want to see what this looks like, that's pretty classic. So if you wanted to do like an in-person podcast, you could have a setup over here. There's stuff for video over here. We have the couple of microphones, enough for 3 guests. There's editing stuff, a soundboard, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a fun multi-purpose thing. I really wish I had the ability to have this in my house, but I don't really have any rooms that are this big, so this oh, little too much talking. But yeah, so another podcast after this. If you guys haven't checked out my podcast yet, I know I'd been talking on previous live streams about starting a podcast. We have it live now. It's Phrasal Productions Podcast on Spotify. We have 2 episodes now. The first one was the interview with the Ted Bundy survivor. That's the first one, and then I did another one with some stories about meeting famous people that have since passed away. One was Whitney Houston, who I actually met the day she passed away at the Beverly Hilton. I was there for doing some other work, and I happened to see her come into the lobby that morning. But I told that story on the podcast. Let's see, Adam really enjoyed the video with the Ted Bundy survivor. Thanks a lot. She was. That was a completely unexpected interview, actually. But sometimes opportunities present themselves. Obviously, when people come to you with a story like that that's not widely known, you kind of are skeptical of it, and you want to make sure that you vet the information. I had a couple of conversations with her, including an hour-long conversation with her on the phone before we did the interview. So I just wanted to make sure that the story checked out, that she was legit. And, nobody can say 100%. I know there were a lot of doubters on that. But personally, I believe her. I heard the emotion on in her voice the time that we talked on the phone. So, that's the nice thing about having a platform like this, is that you can use it to help people get their story out there, especially if they have a story that's worth telling. So, yeah, if you haven't seen that interview yet, it's a fascinating interview. We did have some audio issues on her end, though, where the audio didn't sync up with the video. It skipped for a couple of seconds, and then there were moments where the audio didn't match the video, which is why I also put that out. That's what made me launch the podcast when I did, is because I wanted that. I wanted the audio to be out there where people didn't get caught up on lips not matching the words. I tried really hard to fix that in post-production. It was almost impossible to do, because throughout the video it would fix itself and then it would go back, and it was only on one side that the lips didn't match, and it was too hard for me to figure out. Did Whitney Houston actually speak to you? Yeah, she did for a brief second. I actually asked her for a photo, and she didn't have any makeup on. Her hair was kind of a mess, and she's like, I'm going to come back down, because they were getting ready for the Clive Davis pre-Grammy party at the Beverly Hilton that night. She was going to perform, and she was going to go up to her room, she was going to get ready, she was going to get done up and all that kind of stuff. Then she was going to come back down for sound check and to do some interviews. And basically it was like catch me when I come back down. I'm sound checking at whatever time it was. So I was going to meet her back down there and get that photo, and she never came back downstairs. It's it's creepy and it's eerie when you hear that kind of stuff. I left the Beverly Hilton to get some food and to go run some errands and stuff, because there was nothing else for me to do there. And, my plan was to come back when she was going to come back down for sound check. And when I was driving around, I heard the news break on the radio a few hours later, and I just thought, oh, this can't be, because you always see these death hoaxes. And I thought, there's no way that could be true, because she did not seem like she was in bad shape. She seemed, aside from being tired, she seemed completely fine. So, things like that can kind of jar you a little bit. But I told the whole story on the podcast. So if you want to listen to a little bit more, or a longer version of it, feel free. My father was a taxi driver in college in Connecticut. Used to drive Paul Newman's housekeepers. I got to go inside Paul Newman's house. That's cool. Paul Newman is one of those stars that I always wish that I would have been able to meet. That would have been cool. What a legend he was. Do I work in the entertainment industry? I did for a while. I did a decent amount of work doing behind the scenes work on various films, TV shows, things like that. It was never really a full-time thing. It was just something that I would do as I found work or as I did this and that. But I spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. I went to a lot of award shows, things like that, just because when you have an opportunity to go to that stuff, you go. Over the years, I think I went to, let's see, one of my best friends was an album designer for a record company too. So we used to do a lot of this stuff together. But I went to, I believe it was 7 or 8 Grammys, 2 Oscars, 3 Golden Globes, things like that. So, I mean, I've been around Hollywood for 25 years, but, I've worked on a lot of films, I've worked on a lot of TV shows, but it's never been my full-time gig. But I guess I can say that I kind of moonlit in the entertainment industry. And I also did a lot of independent stuff, which I still do, indie films, things like that. So yeah, I've been around it for more than half my life. Married with Paranormal, how's it going? Yeah, Whitney she was friendly. I didn't see anything. There was definitely no sign of that happening. I definitely never thought that she was going to go up to her room and never come back down. I mean, if people are on drugs or something like that, sometimes you can see it. She didn't seem like she was on any, she seemed tired, but she didn't seem like she was on anything, at least to me. Usually you can sense it or people act a little bit different when they're on something, so I'm assuming whatever drug she took was when she got back up to her room, but I can't say for sure. Have I seen the new Superman movie? I have not. I've seen 1 or 2 Superman, but I'm not huge on the superhero stuff or the comic stuff. There's a lot of comic movies. I've seen very few Marvel movies, which might disappoint some people, but I just never fully got into it. Christopher Reeve. Well, yeah, I mean, him and what was it, George Reeve? Yeah, the original ones. That's going back a long time, and I haven't seen any of those since I was young. But yeah, I mean, he'll always be one of the originals. Margot Hemingway passed away on the anniversary of her grandfather's death. I feel like I've heard that, but yeah, that's it's pretty sad what happened to her too. You just never know with a lot of these people how things like that are gonna go. Live in New Jersey, drove in front of Whitney's New Jersey home, quite the normal neighborhood. Yeah, from everything I've heard about her, she lived a fairly grounded life. I mean, it's pretty sad what happened to her with, the whole Bobby Brown time and the abuse and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, she always, I don't think she ever forgot where she came from. And that's probably one of the best things that you can say about somebody who's become famous. All the talking dries out your throat a little bit. So, has anybody gotten a chance to watch any of the recent videos yet? The Carter gravesite, the family plot. I know one said that they saw the Bundy survivor interview. I know I've posted a couple others, but for the life of me, I can't remember which ones before that, because sometimes I'll film 2 or 3 videos in one day when I'm on the road, and then I'll schedule them for like the next couple Fridays, because that's always been my upload date. It may not always for the future, but for the most part, I've uploaded on Fridays. So what I would do is, if I finish 3 videos, I'd upload them the next 3 Fridays. But then if I feel like, there's a lot of people on a Saturday, or if, people are curious about a specific video I said I was going to do, then maybe I'll put it live on a Saturday or a Sunday. But a lot of times I'll do them ahead of time, and then I'll just schedule them and then kind of change up when they go live. The Dark History of William Holden's Residence. That's cool. I haven't seen that yet. I think he did a thing about that when he did the Dearly Departed DVD. That was probably 10, 15 years ago. I think he did a William Holden story on there, but that was cool. Yeah, the garden is really nice. You know, the fun thing about going to that house was that I've been going to Plains for, I've been there probably a half a dozen times in the last 10 years. And I've driven by Carter's house so many times. And I always wondered what things looked like on the other side of the fence because most presidents' houses, there's a million pictures online of it and you can see what it looks like. Carter's house was different because there was like one or two pictures that existed of the house, no pictures that existed that I ever saw of the property. So when I went there, I had no idea what to expect, and it was just beautiful. I've had several people ask already how far the pond and the gravesite were from the home. Not far at all. The home had maybe a half a football field from the front door to the extended driveway. From the extended driveway, it was maybe a football field from the drive to the gravesite. So as long as the trees weren't in the way, they could have easily seen the gravesite from their house. Easy. Do I plan on doing Hulk Hogan's death location? I probably will at some point. The weird thing is that last week, let's see, he passed away on Thursday, I think. The Friday before I was actually in Clearwater, me and my wife took a beach day, and she mentioned to me, she's like, you've always talked about randomly seeing Hulk Hogan here. She's like, we've never driven by his house. So we drove by his house. That was last Friday, and we noticed that he always had he drove around a lot of times on a kind of a souped up golf cart. And we noticed when we went by the house that the golf cart was covered up, and usually it wasn't. So it kind of made me think either he was out of town or he just hadn't been active in a little while or hadn't used it. So I didn't think much of it because, he travels a lot too. And, then it was less than a week later, he passed away. But will I do it? Yes, I probably will. When? I don't know. I feel like it's way too soon right now. I know that police have been around and there's been a lot of gawkers, and the family really doesn't need that right now. So I'm sure I will do it, but it's going to be a little bit. I'm sure I won't be the first person to do it. I don't do this kind of stuff just for the high views. So I'm willing to wait until things die down a little bit, well after his funeral, burial, any of that stuff. So I will do it, but it's not going to be anytime really soon, maybe a couple months out at least. Let's see. Had a friend whose grandfather was one of Carter's advisors, Reginald Jones. Oh, that's cool. The fun thing is, too, when you're in Plains and you go into the shops and talk to people, there's a guy named Philip, if you're ever there. He runs the Plains Trading Post. He's got the best stories of Jimmy Carter that you've never heard because he used to come in there all the time and he'd sign books for him and things like that. And the last time I was in there, I talked to him for a while, and he told me that the last time he was in there, he was looking at some of his political buttons and campaign things, and he was looking at the prices, and the owner of that said that he'd never met somebody as cheap as Jimmy Carter. He said that every time he came in, he would complain or he would make comments about how expensive things were, and I didn't think his stuff was any more expensive than anywhere else where you could buy the same type of stuff. So I thought that was pretty funny. Any more museum tours planned for the future? There's always going to be museum tours. There's 3, 4, 5 museums I'm eyeing up right now. The next one that I do, I'm not sure which one I'll get to when. Some days when I end up with 2 or 3 free days, I'll just kind of wake up and I'll look at the list of places that I want to do, and I'll think what's close or where could I go and do 2 or 3, 4 videos at the same time. So there will be more, but I mean, actually, now that you mention it, the Museum of Drag Racing, it's not something that I would normally do on this channel, but we're going through it this next Friday, August 8th, so not this Friday, next Friday. We're going through that. It's Big Daddy Don Garlitz. He's a drag racing legend. And his museum, we're going to that museum and we're doing a tour with Don Garlitz. So that one we will be, that's probably the next one I'll do. There will be more coming up after that, but I'm not sure what the next ones will be. And a lot of them I also have to find out what their filming policies are. Let's see. Does that Christina Aguilera girl still live in Ozzy Osbourne's old house? That's a good question. She did buy it after the Osbournes. Does she still live there? I don't know. She may not. Let's see. Have I ever been to the Hulk Hogan store? Yeah, I've been there. It's yeah, he has one in Clearwater, he has one in Orlando, and I think he has one in Pigeon Forge. I have been to the Clearwater one. It's been a couple of years. They had a lot of signed stuff in there. He did appearances regularly in there. I'm not sure what's going to happen now that he's passed. I would assume that somebody will take over ownership, but obviously he's not. I'm sure he's signed a ton of stuff, so they'll probably have a backlog of things for years. But you just never know. Is he going to be buried? I'm assuming you're asking about Hulk. So, okay, so I've heard mixed things. I've heard one that he did not want to be buried. Now I'm hearing rumors that he will be buried. They are just that, they're rumors. I have no idea what's actually going to happen. They haven't announced any funeral plans yet that I've seen or heard of. So I don't know. I will be keeping an ear out. So, you know, as I hear things, I'll let you know. But have I ever heard about, oh, Grady Stiles? I have. I have plans of doing a video on him. I got a couple of locations of him mapped out, and I actually did a short on our YouTube or our Facebook page, and it was a hand cast of Lobster Boy, and Grady Stiles III, Lobster Boy's son, commented on that video, and he was answering all kinds of questions about his dad and all that kind of stuff. So I posted that short, but I will do a longer video on it. I've had quite a few people asking on that one because that video went semi-viral, and Lobster Boy's son was actually very responsive with answering people's questions on there, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, I've definitely heard about him, and I do have plans of doing videos. Christy McCall, but her death was tragic. She died saving her sons from a speeding boat. I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to look that one up. Yeah, they did close the store for a couple of days, for at least one day, maybe two, but it's back open now. And as far as what they're going to do next, I don't know. Hogan's Hangout is still open. They're still, you know, and the weird thing is that Hulk used to host a karaoke night at Hogan's Hangout in Clearwater on Monday nights. So if you would have went out there, you could have sang karaoke with him as a judge. And sometimes he would have come out and sang with people. So that was cool. So if you want to know like how interactive he was with fans or with his businesses, he was there a lot. And he was you know, he was a big part of Clearwater. Everybody had seen him. Everybody seemed to know him. He wasn't the kind of guy that would just hide in his house. He would patronize the restaurants. He would be seen on the beach. He'd be riding his golf cart around town. I mean, he was all over the place. So he definitely wasn't one of those celebrities that hid from people. Let's see. Who is the nicest celebrity you've ever met? Rudest celebrity. Not exactly that nice towards you. Okay, this is the nicest. Okay, from a working standpoint, the nicest person I ever met was probably Matt Damon. And the reason being is, okay, I've met him a whole bunch of times in different settings, and I did a little bit of work on a movie called Contagion. It filmed like 2010, 2011. And I was just doing some background work. We were basically setting off squibs. If you know what those are, they're like little detonation devices that you press a button. There was a bank scene where they were throwing shopping carts through a window, and we were helping detonate, making the windows shatter when they were throwing the carts through. And Matt was on set because how movies work is I was on set for 2 days, and the amount of work that was done, we were filming for like 14 hours a day, and the actual clips that they used from those days were like maybe 10 seconds long. So that much work goes into the short clips that go into movies. But anyway, Matt Damon was one of the stars. He was the only star that was there on set that day. And he was, or if there were others on set, they were not interacting with the rest of the people. But I think he was the only one that had scenes on the call sheet that day. But he actually he bought food for everybody afterwards, and just a really really nice guy. He ate with the crew, with extras, with everything else, and that really doesn't happen that often. So professionally, I'd say Matt Damon. Even personally, he's the same guy. Selena Gomez, she is probably the sweetest person in Hollywood right now. She has not forgotten where she came from. Had numerous conversations with her over the years at various events. She's just the nicest, most like sweetest, bubbly personality. Like she will walk up and initiate a conversation with you if she sees you, even if she doesn't know you. That's just the kind of person she is, just very, very sweet. So if I had to pick two, I'd probably say those two. Not nice. Okay, I know I'll probably catch a little bit of flack for this, but there's the people with the worst reputations are comedians. People that you probably love that are not as cool on set or to meet or anything like that. The worst interaction that I've had with somebody, and I don't want to go into details about it, but let's just say that he was not friendly. He was not friendly with anybody that I interacted with that day. Not cool at all. I mean, maybe he had a bad day, but I've heard the same story from a lot of other people that met him, that worked with him on various different things. They all said the same thing, that hands down, the worst person that they interacted with was John C. Reilly. And if that name doesn't sound familiar, he's been in a lot of movies. He was in a lot of Will Ferrell movies, Step Brothers. He was the counterpart to Will Ferrell, Talladega Nights. Kind of a comedic actor, but in my opinion, not a nice guy. Will Ferrell's another one that he really turns it on for the camera, but off camera, he's not always the friendliest. Yeah, John C. Reilly's the one that really stands out, though, in terms of that. Yeah, Hogan, the karaoke every Monday night, as long as he was in town. That was, sadly, I never got to go to it. It was always on my radar. You always think, oh, I'll have another week, we'll go next week, we'll go next month, next year, but you have to remember 71 years old, and the amount of surgeries, the amount of injuries he had, you just never know when the opportunities are going to go away. So if you guys ever get a chance to meet somebody, even if it costs money, even if it's at a convention or something like that, take advantage of it, because you never know when the opportunities are going to go away. Out of all the amazing and interesting places I visited, what are some of your favorites? My favorites are probably the presidential sites, presidential graves, presidential houses. I love history. I always loved going out to LA and looking up places out there. But the problem with that is that so many places are being bulldozed. You'll have a historic house that's not protected. You'll have someone else that comes in with millions of dollars, buys the property and the house, bulldozes the property, and then the history is all gone. Then all you have is an empty lot and soon to be a new mansion. Hollywood is not, I hate to say it, but it's not what it once was. There's not as many things being filmed in Hollywood as there used to be. Streaming services are becoming bigger. A lot of them aren't even filming in LA, so but historic sites, presidential locations, at least they're protected, so they'll be there for a while. Robin Williams, he was, Oh, what a legend. He was a really nice guy too. I only ran into him one time, and it was back in, he was doing a comedy show in Chicago at the Chicago Theater. And we went to the show, and then me and my buddy were like, what do you think the chances are of him stopping to meet people outside? I know inside he had done a $400 a person meet and greet, and at the time that was too rich for my blood, so we just thought, okay, we had always heard rumors that Robin Williams was a really nice guy, so we waited outside. There were maybe a dozen other people waiting, and we thought, okay, we're gonna give this a shot. So security kind of kept us at bay. They kept us like probably 20 feet from the stage door. There was a black SUV that was running. The door was open. They were waiting for him to come out. He comes out, waves at the crowd, acts like he's going to run into the SUV, which is kind of a classic move for him. Like he was a funny guy. And then he came up to us and he's like, you know, a bunch of people just paid for a meet and greet inside. He's like, you guys are really the smart ones. And he was signing anything anyone handed to him. He was posing for pictures, just the nicest guy. You know, obviously that's the only time I ever saw him, only interaction I ever had with him. But I mean, from that, he just seemed like a very genuine guy. So yeah, Robin Williams, another Hollywood nice guy. First cousin married the first cousin of Harold Ramis. He was another guy, Harold Ramis. You didn't see him around a whole lot, but he was another really nice guy. Gene Tracy, in the same cemetery that your dad's buried in. Yeah, I have. Doing a good job with your channel, brother. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Tizzy Tisdale, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, the channel, I've always said this on videos, live streams. I never thought that this channel would amount to anything. This is still not my full-time gig. I don't know if it ever will be. I know a lot of people go full-time on YouTube, but the problem, okay, first off, I'll be 100% honest. Here's what happened. Here's how I see it. Once you do something full-time, it becomes a job, and then it becomes not quite as fun. And while I would love the freedom to be able to do whatever, go whenever, go do whatever, it would also come with the pressure, I guess you could say, of knowing that you have to make so much money a month. And that seems to be when a lot of people that do YouTube start doing longer videos, start putting a lot more fluff into the videos, and sometimes start putting out a lot of really boring and repetitive content. And I know there's a lot of people that think that some of what I do is boring, but I put out the content that I would want to watch. So maybe that makes me a boring person to some people, but that's okay. I can't please everybody. But the problem is that, you know, if you go full-time, I feel like at some point you're going to lose that passion. Can I say with 100% certainty that I'll never do it? Nothing's ever certain. At some point I'll probably walk away from a lot of other things that I do. But it's hard to tell. It's impossible to say what the future is going to hold, and I honestly don't know. But as things change, I will give updates in future videos. Kurt Dion, the presidential grave hunter. That's a good idea. He's I've never talked to him, never met him, but I've seen I've seen his website, and I've seen an interview that he did, and he's a smart guy. So yeah, he'd be cool to talk to. Tampa Bay Comic Convention. You know, I thought about it. I can't say that I've completely ruled it out. They have some guests that I'd like to meet, but the problem is that, okay, going to conventions, you know, I have no special privileges there. I don't know, you know, a lot of people running these conventions now. Back in the day, I knew some people that were agents for some of the celebrities. Those celebrities are mostly dead now. So those connections are pretty much gone. there's some people there I would really like to meet, but the problem is that it's gotten so expensive, like so ridiculously expensive to go to those conventions. Like if you want to meet a handful of people, you have to bring, $1,000. And well, it's fun and you enjoy doing it. And especially if some of these older celebrities go, I would really like to see some of these people. But I haven't ruled it out completely, but I'm also not completely sold. So if you do go there and you happen to see me around, come say hi. Let's see. Good advice, full-time YouTuber. Um, yeah, I don't know if you guys have noticed or not, but it seems like when people know that they have to put out so many videos, and I'm not knocking anybody at all, everybody has to make a living, but when you make something like this your living, some of the videos that you put the most time and effort into are the ones that nobody watches. But then if you put out like just mindless stuff that you put no effort into, that's the stuff that sometimes takes off, and it's weird and I don't completely understand it. And I'll never understand how the YouTube algorithm works, because in my opinion, some of the best videos that I've done are some of the ones that have done the worst. Problem is you lose your channel and you don't have a backup plan. That could happen too, because once people get monetized, you can get demonetized at any point. If somebody, basically a lot of stuff is AI done now. There's, stuff detecting little things in people, and, people can get, just in the flick of a switch, somebody could lose all their monetization and then their entire livelihood goes away. And I'll be honest, that would scare me a lot. And I don't ever really want to get to the point where I feel like I have to put out a video today, even if I'm not doing something interesting, just because I need the money. That's the nice thing about, actually having a job and having gigs and things like that, is that this can remain fun. But as far as what the future holds, I really don't know.